Hey guys, welcome to another solo valtan bus series. This is my friend's Ignition Sorc. It's a little unique because it's high swiftness Ignition Sorc. The major difference is lack of crit, but with Precision Dagger equipped, with Ignition at 25%, Precision Dagger at 20%, the extra small crit from combat stat due to bracelets you get from 1490, the total crit rate adds up to about 50%. Since Ignition itself is a keen blunt weapon due to providing 50% crit damage, this crit rate is enough. Also, Relic sets is split into 2 Nightmare and 4 Domination. Nightmare 2 set reduces mana usage of all skills by 50% and increases damage by 15%. 4 set of Domination is where you cast your Awakening, you become an awakened state, where you receive 36% cooldown and 28% more damage for 2 minutes. With high swiftness, you will be using a lot of skills. Therefore, fixing the mana problem with the Nightmare is a good decision. This is a good example of Sorc can be also played this way, because she is a very versatile class. Sorceress' most important 3 skills are Explosion, Punishing Thunder, and Doomsday. And as you notice, most of the skills should be rotating based on that, unless you're a Reflux Instant Cast Sorc. But since that is a very specific build, we won't talk about it right now. So as you see here, he's stacking up his identity gauge. When all identity gauges are filled, you can go Igniter mode and have the additional crit rate and then additional damage, and additional cast speed as well. So we have everything filled up here, and Lucas comes out with the 2v1. So at the same time, for all Valtan runs, you're looking at the Esther gauge right now. Since Esther gauge isn't filled and at 40 bars, he's just taking his time and not getting hit as much. But also not using the Igniter yet, because if he uses the Igniter, he'll be doing too much damage, and what if it becomes, and if the bar becomes 30, he will need to do the gimmick without the Esther gauge, and if you do the gimmick without the Esther gauge, it's impossible, so you really have to wait. So as you can see here, the playstyle is a little bit different. So he uses the Rhyme Arrow and the Blaze to get the Conviction and Judgment rune popped up, and when Conviction and Judgment rune pops up, your cooldown decreases by another 15%. So he proceeds to do this Awakening right after the Conviction Judgment pops, so he has about a minute and 40 or minute and 50 seconds to have the Awakening cooldown, because his build is Domination build. The Domination buff lasts 2 minutes, so the Awakening needs to be at least a 2-minute cooldown in order for the buff to last 100% of the time. So basically, these are your 2 types. You can go for an Awakening Engraving, or use a Conviction and Judgment rune combo to keep the Awakening buff on. Second is a harder choice, and it's pretty hard for NA right now due to missing the legendary runes, but just keep in mind, there is like another method for you to manually lower your cooldown by utilizing Conviction and Judgment rune. When Domination Relic set is active, you have a bunch of cooldowns active, and you do a lot of damage. 36% is a lot. So you can use a lot of Rhyme Arrows, you can use the other skills to fill up the identity gauge super fast, and proceed to do the damage accordingly. The only bad part is you don't really see the yellow numbers as enough, but I mean that's fine because you still have a decent amount of crit rate. At the same time, you just do a lot of flat damage. Also, the Swiftness Sorceress is much faster, walks much faster, casts much faster. So it seems like it's going to be a much safer bet. I guess it's like a different playstyle, right? It lacks a little bit of the damage side, but if they really like the casting part of the Sorceress, this is like another optional build for you to do. This case is the most well-known combo. If you cast a Doomsday and then cast Ignition afterwards, you get the Ignition impact of the Doomsday, and you can use the Doomsday much faster. So it's a 2 Doomsdays combo. Most people like to do that, and it is the most well-used combo as well. You can push a huge number of bars, as you can see here. It went from 33 to 27 immediately to activate the mechanic. So here he's going to use Way, and he's going to proceed to eat the orbs. There you go. Very clean, and he proceeds to do the rest of the stagger to go to the next phase. There's some more damage. So he is at 25, so he's going to chill right now to make sure the Esther gauge is filled up. So if you look at closely here, he doesn't have the Domination set buff anymore, so he's going to activate it by making sure Conviction and Judgment runes pop first. Use the Awakening to activate the buff. You don't need to use the other Awakening, he uses the Meteor one because it's much faster. You don't want to be stuck on Awakening because Awakening damage is not your main point. It's to get the Domination set buff, Domination Relic set buff to be activated. So we skipped ahead to a point where the Esther gauge is fully filled on the top left, and since the Esther gauge is popped up, now he's going to push the damage a little bit more. He gets hit a little bit, but that's fine because the Sorceress is tanky enough, and his gear score is pretty high, so he doesn't have to worry about getting hit as much. So he activates the buff again, the Awakening, and the Domination Relic set buff. I don't think he's going to use ignition though, because when he uses ignition, he might push a little too much. He might do it after the mechanic, which it makes sense. Because he only needs 1 bar. So bar 15 is coming soon. There you go. Well, 16 and 15 by the way, so when it's getting closer. So he starts the second mechanic. He's going to spawn way. And then proceeds to eat the orbs. And then do the rest of the stacker. That was very quick. So he proceeds to turn on the igniter, do the combo, the double doomsday combo, before he does the transformation. Since you're Swift Sorcerers, you tend to spam a lot more skills compared to the spec ignition sorcerers. So if you would like to see big damages, I think you use the spec sorcerers, but Swift Sorcerers has its merits as well. So this is his last stage, 11 bars. Now it's just time to just keep dishing out the damage as much as he can. And do the combinations and kill him before he does the actual mechanic. Maybe he could kill him before the mechanic, let's see. Does a double grab combo. His ignition bar is almost up. So if it's Rhyme Arrow with a couple more skills, I think it's going to be filled up. And when it does, he's going to cast Doomsday and then cast Ignition. There you go, Doomsday. Cast Ignition. So there you go, turn the Ignition again, Doomsday again, big numbers. And the skill comes back again. He can do Punishing Thunder again. Oh, so there's a mechanic. So he had 2 bars left, he almost killed it. He's not going to die from this because it's only the first time. Most of the time when busts happen, some people do get hit once, that's fine. But the second one is when, if you see the second one, the problem is you're not doing as much damage. As a buster, that is. So he's going to finish it off with the rest of the casting skills. So he missed that one. But if that hit, I think he would have died. So he's probably waiting for the next Doomsday or Explosion or any of his casting skills. So he missed the Explosion skill there. That's totally fine. But this has got to be almost done. There you go. When he casts any of his skills, he can probably finish it up. There you go, Explosion. Boom. Nice. So when Valtan starts, same procedure. You gotta wait for his charge, and him into the pillar, and get the orbs. There you go, he does the charge. He's going to get the orbs. But before then, he's pushing some damages so that he can activate the mechanics a little faster. The second charge to the pillar. He's filling up his identity gauge to get ready for the next burst. So afterwards, he's proceeding to go eat all the orbs to fill up the Esther gauge on the top left. One part that's pretty funny is if there's 8 people, there are 8 spears falling down, so it's gonna be a lot crazier. Obviously, when you're alone, there's only 8 spears, so it's a lot easier. You have a lot of room to dodge. So the third smash is coming right away. Don't know if he's going to get the full Esther gauge though. So when he comes down, he will need to wait until Valtan does another charge. He does a headbutt, he slams on the wall, and then he will spawn Thyrane to destroy one of his armors. As explained before, Valtan has 20% extra defense, and in order for you to break that defense, you need to destroy his armor. And it's usually weak point, but it takes a lot of weak point. I think it's like 45-ish. That's what people have said. So everyone needs to throw the destruction bomb, and one person needs to throw a corrosive bomb. It's very important. But in a bus run, you can only break 1 armor with Thyrane. He does 2 jump attacks. So he has the bar ready to go. So he's going to slam on the wall, spawn Thyrane, and I think he's probably going to do his combo. So he Doomsday, turn Ignition, and proceed to do all of his casting skills for big damage. Just gonna wait for that. Dodges the red part. So by the way, if you get hit by the first hit, your shield runs out. So what happens is, if you get hit by the first one, you actually wipe. I did that. I made a mistake one time as though. Rhyme arrow filling up the identity gauge. That's good. Outside safe. Inside safe. Great. It seems like Sorceress's playstyle is such mid-range and do big damage and don't have to worry about back attacks. It seems to be... It looks like it's very easy compared to other classes where they need to move a lot more. He starts his next gimmick. You can stand on that photo zone. We call that photo zone, by the way. Like, he gets picked. When there's 8 people, random person is going to get picked. Hide behind the pillar and wait for the next one. So when this axe hit gets hit by the pillar explodes, and the pillar usually do almost death damage unless you have high gear. So when you guys are challenging Valtan, make sure you don't get hit by those rocks. You're definitely going to die unless Bard has shielded you. So there's a dodging mechanic. He still has ignition on. It kind of sucks that Doomsday didn't crit, but the damage is falling down super fast. Sorceress has such a great burst potential. It's just that this particular build, you go high swiftness so you can do burst mechanics more. So his ignition bar is almost up again. And as I said, at 60 bar, there's going to be a grab mechanic. That's why he has this R skill is the counter. So he's going to get ready, use the ignition, he's pushing big bars. He's at 57, so he's going to start his counter mechanic. So you notice some of the classes, when it reaches 60, it goes to the mechanics right away. But someone like Ignition Sorceress, it does big burst damages, right? So they tend to be a lot faster. They tend to take down the more bars before the mechanic starts. There you go, he proceeds to keep on casting the skills. So you notice the positioning that he has. He's just outside the whirlwind. He's just outside most of the attacks. That is like the good position to be in for at least Valtan. So he's doing the 4 hit. So he's gonna stay a little bit far away and just cast Doomsday and it's going to land. It's much easier compared to other classes who are melee as well. So inside outside pattern, casting his skills accordingly. He used the awakening to be in the awakening state to receive additional cooldown and additional damage. This is when you get super strong due to the relic set. Casting more Doomsday. Big damages, big damages. So he proceeds to break the left platform and he's going to go to the center. Now this part, this is where Sorceress becomes a little bit harder when you're bussing because as far as I know, Sorceresses, their blinks do, their space bars do, they do give super armor, but they do get staggered most of the time, and if you get hit by the whirlwind that he does, you proceed to get hit. For example, this part, if you get hit on the tip, you get pushed off and you die, and then people sometimes reset because of that. When you do in the pubs, that's why Sorceresses die sometimes, because some of those type of classes, Gunslinger included, they tend to get hit by the tip and then just get pushed off and die. So you gotta really watch out for that. So he is focusing right now without using the ignition, because he's saving the ignition until after the ghost phase starts. Okay, the ghost phase is going to start now. This is just a very simple dodging mechanic. There you go. Dodging, dodging, dodging. So I also noticed he brought the flame bomb as a battle item. Flame bomb is actually pretty good because the ghost valtan stays in place, so he can throw it if he wants to. So right now he waits for the pattern first. Great. You always have to wait what the first pattern is going to be. He's going to counter first. Actually, he was going to counter, but he pressed the awakening. Good thing that the awakening lasted faster, because if that was the other awakening, he could have been grabbed and he would have to reset the run. That was very lucky for him. He probably have pressed the wrong button back there. There you go. Thyrane is spawned early to do some extra damage. He counters the boss, turns down the stack from 4 to 3. So he will do more damage. But in general, that 4 stack doesn't really matter, because since you're overgeared and then you do a decent amount of damage, you don't have to worry about the defense increase on the ghost mode. But when you're actually running in an 8-man, you actually have to take down as much stacks as you can, because you will run out of time with the DPS tech. Gauge is going to get filled up, so he's going to counter, and then he doomsday. Then he's going to turn on the gauge, ignition gauge, there you go. Then he's going to proceed to attack. He uses the space bar to dodge the other counter, which is very smart. And he also uses a time stop, because that time is a really good time stop. Is because if you don't know what's going to happen with the collision of all the attacks, it is good to press a time stop, because if you get hit once and pushed off the cliff, you have to restart, right? So it's always good to use a time stop if you think you're not sure of what is going to happen. So that was a good idea for him. That was also a very clean run, a very unique build as well. And that wraps up the video. Hope you guys liked it. Thanks guys. Bye.